What is going on today, Internet? I got another video for you today. Today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite things to use on a daily basis, and that would be glorious, glorious fountain pens. I'm sure many of you are familiar with fountain pens. If you're not, this video is actually for you. This is going to be kind of a fountain pens 101. We're going to talk about the pens themselves, the difference in the nib sizes, what a nib is, ink filling systems, the difference that good paper, bad paper, all that stuff. We're going to what it means for you, and we're going to talk a little bit about ink, but it's going to be real quick and condensed to kind of get you into it if you're maybe on the fence about getting a writing instrument that costs more than $8 for a pack of them. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to talk about that. Okay, today we are going to talk about fountain pens, like I said earlier. Got a couple different options here. Now, if you're not familiar with what a fountain pen is, you're probably more familiar with these guys, traditional ballpoint pens. Ballpoint pens use a cartridge, always with a cartridge, for the most part. There are a few exceptions to this rule, but a sealed ink unit, just like this. There's a little stainless steel ball in the very tip, or metal ball in the very tip. And as you write, it rolls the ball and exposes the ball to more ink as you write. I'll do a quick writing demo here in this, kind of show what's what. So here's a ballpoint pen. And with the ballpoint pen, you have to push down fairly hard to get the ink to actually flow out. Alright, so right here we've got the TWSBI 580 AL Diamond. This is a fountain pen. You'll notice on the bottom that's your feed. Right up here on top is your nib, so nib unit. This whole thing comprises of a nib unit, so nib, the feed. These are your tangs on the nib and the breather hole. Now, the breather hole right here, that little tiny dot, that's important. That allows the ink to actually flow through and breathe correctly. Now, some nibs you'll see commonly referred to as having nib creep, and we'll show that on my Osprey Scholar. See how the whole tip of this nib is blue? No, that's not just from inking it. That is horrible nib feed. The pen itself writes fine, but when you hear a nib creep, that is what people are referring to, is that that ink welling up out of the slit in the nib. And then this is what a nib unit looks like. This is for the Osprey, but they're available for different pens. So here's the Osprey one. This is a fine. And then on your TWSBI you have a piston filling system. So there's different ways that the pens fill. All these pens I have, I think with the exception of the Noodlers, use a piston or vacuum style. I think all of these pens that I have are all piston fill. So the way this one works is you screw the back end and the piston right here moves up and down to draw the ink. Now to draw the ink up, you're going to take your ink just like this, open it up, dip it inside, and then vacuum or suck the ink on out. Real straightforward. Now some people like to post their pens where you mount the cap to the back. I personally hate that feeling. I like the pen to feel just like that. We're going to talk about the differences in these. Right now I have a Pilot Metropolitan, which is this pen here, in medium, an Osprey Scholar in medium, an Ahab Flex from Noodlers, which I'll show you what a flex pen is, and then a TWSBI Diamond 580 AL in medium as well. Now I'm going to show you that all mediums aren't necessarily mediums. So if you're shopping for a fountain pen, it's super important to make sure you know what you like to write with. And to be doing these demonstrations, I'm going to be using my Leuchtturm 1917 bullet journal here. First pen up is the Osprey Scholar in medium. I know my handwriting is not the greatest, but yeah. So first up here on top, Osprey Scholar with a medium nib unit. Now to the Pilot Metropolitan, also with a medium nib. Alright, and so you'll see right there that the medium nib of the Pilot Metropolitan is actually much finer than the medium nibbed Osprey Scholar. There is a difference, and it's not just the ink. And the reason I chose this paper is there's no feathering and not a lot of bleed through. Alright, the last pen to have a medium nib in it is this pen right here, which is the my daily writer, which is my TWSBI 580. And you'll see right here, I'm using different inks in all of them, but the ink isn't really the issue for the broadness. It's actually a difference here in the nib size itself. If you're coming from ballpoint pens, these two mediums are going to look like 1mm, like gel pens, and obviously they're very bold writing. This is more in line with what a standard medium is, and this is the Pilot in their medium nib, but in fountain pens, typically a medium is going to be a little bit bigger, and I really do enjoy that. Now, what on earth is a flex pen? Well, let me go ahead and give you a shot here. So here's a flex nib, and as you can see, it also suffers from a fair amount of nib creep with the ink kind of all over. But basically, when you're writing with a flex nib, you can push down. You can see that the tangs split, and you're going to get more shading. So even with the writing test, which I'll do right now, which is going to be challenging because I have to write kind of like a lefty. Okay. So here's a test of the flex, and with the flex pen you can do all sorts of different flourishes with your writing. Now a good test for a flex pen is hello, the word hello. So basically a flex pen gives you the ability to do these fine to broad strokes with a ton of shading, and you will see this occasionally. This is called railroading. Now this is when you're writing too fast for the ink to keep up. So this pen does suffer from that a little bit, but usually I don't do broad strokes like that back to back to back. So this very top ink is Noodler's 54th Massachusetts, which is this ink right here. It's a real nice blue. The black, plain old Noodler's black, and these are I think they're 3 point something ounce bottles. Or no, these are 3 ounce bottles from Noodler's, and they are filled to the brim. This nice purple black is Black Swan in Australian Roses, also from Noodler's. And then this gorgeous orange down here on the bottom is a venerable ink that, love it or hate it, it's Patchy Sunset. And that's one of the joys of fountain pens. You're not stuck with one ink and one pen. You can just drain it and rinse it with water and refill it. So let's talk about one more thing real fast. So I've talked about the pens here real quick. Let's talk about the difference in papers. All right, you'll notice on the very wet writing sample I did, let's see if you can get some wetness. Yeah, look at that. On the very wet ink sample that I have right there, which is the Leuchtturm, it's very resistant to ink, and it does bleed through a little with the flex nib because you're pushing harder into the paper. It's not a big deal, but this is 80 grain paper, so it's not necessarily lightweight paper. But not bad, and I know since I just closed it I'm going to have some ink on this opposite page. I'm perfectly fine with that, not a big deal. So let's talk about some characteristics of paper really fast, and then we're all done. Here's my pocket journal. This is a Rhodia. Rhodia is known for its paper quality. So you can see a little bit of show through from the previous page in that dark blue, but not a lot of ink, not a lot of bleed, so just some show through. And this is the Apache Sunset from Noodler's. I've got my beer tasting notes all pretty much set up. So this is what I would deem good quality paper. There's not a lot of feathering, if any, in this Rhodia journal. Now, however, this is my carry around notebook. This is an Amazon special. This is what I currently take my beer notes in. But you'll notice right on the letters, there's a little bit of feathering, and feathering is basically where it looks like little tiny feathers shooting out. All right, so that's going to pretty much wrap it up for fountain pens and everything like that. So if you're thinking about getting into it, go ahead and get yourself a cheap pen, nothing super crazy. I started with the Pilot Metropolitan, and it has served me well. Now the Pilot Metropolitan comes with the standard ink cartridge, which is just you stick it in there and it feeds through and down. But I bought a converter for it. They're very cheap, and so it gives it a piston filler. Not a big deal, but this is a really good starter pen as something as a throw around everyday kind of deal. It's made nice, it's brass, it's not a bad pen. You don't need to go all out and go with something like this TWSBI. The TWSBI right here is a $60 pen, but it's, I don't know, it's kind of the next step for me. If you're looking to get into flex pens, the Noodler's Ahab or Noodler's Flex, great pens, cheap. If you live in the state of California, for whatever reason, Amazon won't send them, and I'm assuming it's because of the composition of the materials. They use a nitrocellulose, I believe, which California just doesn't like, things like that. And then the Osprey pen, which is also another cheap alternative. This one does have replaceable nib units, much like the TWSBI. So for not a lot of money, the Osprey Scholar is a great pen available from Osprey Pens. Alright, and that's going to do it for me. If you guys found this video useful, go ahead and leave a comment, like, subscribe, give it a thumbs up, tell me what you liked, what you didn't like. I'll do my best to provide better content. As always, this is Chris. Thanks, and have a great day.